This is Eugene Johnson of Altamont, New York. This interview is taking place January 21, 2004 in his home. He served in the Army Air Corps from April 1943 through October 17, 1945. This interview is being conducted by Kenneth and June Hunter at 11 o'clock in the morning. What is your full name?
Eugene L. Johnson.
When and where were you born?
Born in October 16th, 1924 in Rochester, New York.
And what did you do before you entered the service?
Mounted armor plate and gun turrets for bombers.
I thought you said you worked in the quarry.
Well, that's your problem. I skip on the things that are important to me.
Okay. And did you enlist in the service?
No, wait a minute, honey. You ask one question and you follow another one. You gotta be careful. Prior to going into service, I learned to swim when my mother didn't know I was going. I sneaked with the swimming trunks under my blue jeans, went up in the old canal bed, the Erie Canal bed next to my home, and I go swimming by myself, all by myself. That's how I learned the dog paddle. I'd walk down the ramp and turn around and swim back as far as I could go. But in that same canal, I used to trap muskrat. And when I was about 15, I used to trap muskrat, skin them out, dress them, and prepare them for sale. And back in the same period of time, I had 300 guinea pigs. I raised them for laboratory use. And Bob had 500 rabbits in the barn that we had. So we used to eat rabbits and show rabbits and sell them too, I guess. Then Bob and I both worked in my dad's gas station when we were teenagers. And then shortly after that, Bob went in service and joined the Air Corps. And about less than a year later, I joined the Army Air Corps. I didn't join directly. I got drafted. Sent me a letter. I was trying to volunteer to go in. I went to the federal government building in Rochester, New York, and took the mental, and passed that. I had to take the physical at Hancock Field in Syracuse, New York. So out of my own pocket, I had to go and pay my own fare there and back. And when I got back, I had all this back, and I got letters from the Air Corps saying, I didn't get it from the Air Corps, I got it from some military, saying that it's all right. So when I got sworn in, I told them what I had done. They told me to bring the paperwork. Then they put me in the Air Corps Basic at that point, because I'd already gone through this preliminary material. So I wound up with basic training. They shipped me to Greensboro, North Carolina. And I spent, well, I don't know, a number of weeks down there in physical training and all the other stuff that went with it. But I came down with, thought it might be rheumatic fever of the heart. The joints all swelled up, my ankles. It got to be a mess. 102.3 fever. They threw me in the hospital for 6 weeks. And an anecdote of that period of time is I used to have to go down once a week to give up blood down to the dispensary or wherever I went, part of the hospital. And so one day I went down there, and the nurse says, you gotta go down. I said, I've been down there. She said, you gotta go anyhow. So I went. We got down there, and I'm pretty keeled over because the guy kept shooting the arm. He couldn't get the blood. So I just about fainted. A young lieutenant walked by. He said, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. We already got yours. I said, I was sent for. Looked at the paperwork, got the wrong Johnson. They sent me down there for a blood test on a Johnson who was suspected to have the ED. So I proved him innocent, I guess. And then after that, I was sent to the rifle range for a period of time. And then I went back to basic training, and it kept me a total of 9 weeks. And then in turn, I was shipped to Spartanburg, South Carolina. I went to Wofford College, which is the old CTD College Training Detachment. Spent about 4 months there, getting brushing up, circular navigation. Just it was a jam course. Trying to get the fellows from high school education and the guys in college, bring them up a little bit. So I buddied around there with a big Jewish boy. The hell was his name? Pardon the language. I knew it. Well, big boy. Turned out I somehow or other wound up buddying with Jewish boys by and large. They're receptive, I guess, enjoyed me. And Andrew Goldberg was another guy I met down there. So we spent about 4 months there, and then you had to go from there to Classification Center, which is at Nashville, Tennessee. So they in turn shipped me out to Nashville, Tennessee. And that is where you take the physical, mental, and map interpretation. Look at maps and interpret what you find on them. And the coordination, the depth perception. I never so lonesome in my life. I got down there, and it was in Christmas time. I never went away from home. And we had soft, cold trains back at that time down near Nashville, in a long grade. And the train was midnight. And I sat there and I stood there and I was on KB washing dishes. I bawled like a baby. I was homesick. I was just right down. Couldn't help myself. So from there, what the results of my test said that I could be any one of the things I wanted to be. Pilot, Bombardier, or Navigator. I chose navigation. So they were short on navigators, I guess. So they said, yes, I could be a navigator. So I went from there to Monroe Field, Monroe, Louisiana, anyhow, the airfield. Took my navigational training in the AT-12s. Used to navigate way over our missions to take us way into Texarkana and Shreveport, in the general area in Louisiana. And after that, I had to leave. So I said, you can go home for 30 days. I think it was 10 days maybe. But anyhow, let's go home and leave. I walked in bright and shiny, young second lieutenant, proud as a button. And from there I went back to, I had to go from there to Lincoln, Nebraska, which is a reserve training unit. They put you there and put you out in other fields as they needed you. And from there I got shipped to Dyersburg, Tennessee, which is a reserve training unit for B-17. That's where you first met your crew. So you got to meet the crew and they got to meet you. And I looked at this big aircraft and I said, that's mine to navigate? Mine. So that's when I met Borges and all the other boys. And we flew down around there quite a bit. Over Lake Okeechobee, down in Memphis. Then they decided to have a mission bombing the bridges in Memphis. They brought a 17 way up from Shreveport, Louisiana. We met someplace, got together. There's a massive bombing in the bridges. Trouble is we had fighter interception, King Cobra. Guy had been a major or something in the Air Force that had a veteran. He came back and so he flew opposition at us. He was told not to fly in at 11 o'clock and level near the quadrant, which is essentially from 2 o'clock, say, to about 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock. He came barreling in. He plane ahead of it up above. He ran in between the number 1 and number 2 engines. He bailed out and got out alive, but they took the heads off, killed 2 guys in the nose of the plane up above me, and parachutes plane all over the place. And that plane landed in a small field outside of Memphis. So we landed. And Borgie, my big pilot, they called in for permission to land. They said, no, you can't come in. We're shooting day and night landings. Borgie said, you may not be able to come in, but I'm coming in anyhow. So he landed it, and the colonel came from the field, boiled out there in his Jeep, started reading Borgie out, and Borgie read the riot act to him. It says emergency, had to be on the ground. I don't know quite why we landed. We didn't have physical damage on us. Anyhow, we did anyhow. So we spent overnight there, I guess. Then we got in the plane and went back to Darsburg. Now that was six to 10 weeks long at the most. And then from there we went to the whole crew. I became the loading officer for the Queen Mary. 18,000 troops and me on board. They gave me a big bay. Said, you will put 99 men in there. Steel rack beds and laced with rope and canvas. 8 high. So I was the youngest shavetail. Wet behind the ears. I said, you will do. And don't make mistakes. I said, I won't. So I came on board. I don't know who the enlisted men were that came on board, but I filled the bay up with them. Then the officers and myself lived in the stateroom. There was a stateroom up there, one of the passenger type accommodations. They put us in there with a couple other officers, jammed us in. So 18,000 troops and me went to England. Mickey Rooney was on the ship with Bobby Breen, remember him? Mickey Rooney either played side bet and crap or shot crap a lot. I never did get to see him. And fortunately we wound over uneventfully. It took 3.5 days to go overseas. They did 30 miles, not 30.
Knots.
Or 30 knots. And zigzagged about every 10 minutes, or whatever they did. And we landed in Firth of Clyde in Scotland. I think it's a body of water, big river, mouth of river, submarine net. And they had to move to let us in. We went there and got off, disembarked from there, took a train to Stone, England. Another holding depot for a few days. Then from there I got shipped with the crew to Bassingbourn, the 91st Bomb Group. That's when I became a member of 91st Bomb Group. Then from there they took me and pulled me off the crew, sent me to radar school. I went to Huckleberry for another 6 or 8 weeks. Then I became the radar navigator Bombardier. That's what I was prepared to do. Flew lead mission with lead crews, and I was supposed to fly 30 missions. That's right, and guys on the wings had to fly 35 by that time. And but fortunately for me, the war ended, and I got in 16 when the war wrapped up, and I went home.
Now, when you were over in England, what was your experience? What were your feelings like when you went out on your first mission?
I don't even remember.
And now you said that there were several missions that we were talking about, but there was one that really stood out for you.
That was Berlin.
Tell us about that.
I wish I had my list and didn't give you the number. Must have been near the end of the war. It was a 100-bomb mission, and we flew in to Berlin to try to knock out Germany, get rid of them as quickly as we could. Didn't worry about whether they killed grandmothers, grandchildren, or what. But we bombed from about 23,000 feet, maximum load, which is about 3 ton. And I was the radar navigator on one of the squadron lead aircraft. And we got in line up, go on the IP on the bomb run, which is straight and level in. The guy was in one group was in ahead of me. And he went in, they opened up the bomb bay doors to bomb downtown Berlin. And anti-aircraft, as far as I know, it blew the plane apart. 11 men. They had radio, I think they even had BBC or somebody else's reporters on board. And he just disappeared all over the sky. Being with the nose on the radar, I couldn't see that physically, so I heard it on the intercom. That's probably why I'm not a nervous wreck yet. I am a little bit, but not that bad.
Well, did they feed you well in the Air Force? Did you have good food?
Well, probably as good as anybody. Not as good as the Navy. Well, we had Argentine beef, dried eggs, dried eggs. There was some smart guy in our group took part of the eggs, one of the sister groups, turned them into ice cream for us and brought them back. Yeah. We ate well in the mess hall. We had an officer's mess hall, an officer's bar. I lived in bachelor officer's quarters, which the facility we occupied when in Basingbourne were all steam heated brick buildings. It was had been an old RAF field at one time that we took over. 4 big hangars in it.
Now you received some medals. Could you tell us about those?
Not specifically, you can't.
You received, I believe, the Air Medal.
I got the Air Medal with cluster.
That's right.
And I got the Peace Medal, Victory Medal.
The World War II Victory Medal. And I believe that eventually you will be receiving a medal, a Normandy medal, because you were in the service at the time and stationed over in England when D-Day began.
Is that the only one in the state, or is there another one?
And then you'll be getting one from the state. I believe you said it would be the New York State Conspicuous Service Medal.
Something like that.
Now, while you came back, when you came back from a military run over Europe, did you have time for R&R? And where did you go? What kinds of things did you see?
Well, you get an R&R. For us, was convenient to get to London because we're only about 40 miles north of London. So we hop a train and go down to London. We could go into Cambridge on an overnight run on a truck, taking a movie, fish and chips. Ever eat fish and chips out of a paper bag? And newspaper rolled up in the cone. And something took place back then. I forget what happened there. We met a guy who was looking for a ride home. We missed our truck. We got a ride with somebody. He's going to. We had to go to Alconbury, I guess. So we got a ride into Alconbury because I had a buddy that went to radar school with me. And but any overnight type thing, we could go down to London by train. Royston was the nearest little village next near us. That was a day trip. That's where I met a cute little redhead. I married my wife. The girl was supposed to show the next following Saturday. She never showed. Frightened her off, I guess. But Royston was the nearest one. And since that, in World War II, they've turned the control tower into a museum. One of the famous authors of a lot of Air Force books, I'll tell you his name sometime. He's an Englishman. He did a lot of the really good books about bombers and 8th Air Force and Native Englishmen. Well, we go down to London and we take in a show, either live production or a movie or whatever we could do. We used to, for fun of it, when we first got there, crew would meet down there temporarily on a train going down, then enlisted men had a bed down in the Red Cross men place for enlisted men, and the officers had this golden house. Then we meet separately from that. We go for a walk, just look at things over. We walked until we got lost. We didn't know anything. Streets over there just wandered all over. Trick of that, somebody taught it to us. You hail a cab. There were cabs all over the place. You hail a cab for shillings or a few shillings. Hop in the cab, about 4 of us, and they take us down to Piccadilly Circus, and we start all over again. The first time I ever spent a night down in London, bedding down in a hotel someplace, V2 bomb dropped in. You know, distance. That's about the time they were kicking the V2 bombs over the buzz bombs. And then later on, flying into Germany, because we were flying at low level, going in first, and then we go up in altitude. Not low level, but 3,000 or 4,000 feet over unoccupied France and Holland. We see the V2 missiles, the ones they shot way in the air. We see the vapor trails where they went up.
Have you ever been back there since you left?
No. I was hoping that something out of this BBC would have materialized, but it didn't.
Tell us about the BBC interviewing you. And
I wish I could remember the years. Must have been about 5, 6 years ago. I even have pictures of the people who were here with me, someplace. Back about 5 years ago, and make it about 1998. Long in there. I was called by people out of BBC because of my radar experience. They call it. They developed it under a different name and didn't call it Mickey. We call it Mickey. It was a nickname for it. But they call it some other name, a British name. It was developed in England, radar was. It further developed over here in America, over at MIT. So anyhow, long story short, they want to know more about my experiences, like you're talking about now, but as a radar operator. So we found a plane for him. He used to belong to a group out in Oswego that had a B-17, fuddy-duddy, something like that it was called. Didn't fly it out there, air shows. Had a hangar for it and all. And they finally, young people got joined the club, moved it all down to Chemnitz, Corning, Horseheads. They took the 17 with them. The excuse for doing it was to get it down on hard pan, because the field we were at that time were a grass field, earth field. So all you do is a World War II type aircraft. The young one had their jets and everything else. So they moved the airplane down. For a while they flew out of what's the one? City west of Rochester.
Buffalo,
No, one in between.
Batavia.
They flew out of the Air Force base there for a while, for air shows, where I had a hard band. Then they moved it down. Chemung wanted it. They wanted the attraction. I understand since then it's folded up. I don't know what's happened to it. But I was a member there. I was a member at Oswego. I was a member at the Aerospace Museum in Schenectady, and I'm a lifetime member of the 8th Air Force Association out of Georgia. I think they're down in Georgia, aren't they?
I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Are you in the, did you ever join the VFW or American Legion?
Never wanted
Any of
to.
those? Okay.
I started one time and they wanted to drink. I went to one meeting, guy said, you gotta join this American Legion or VFW. So I went to them and Guy from Rochester. Come on. I already got in the door. 10 minutes meeting was down in the bar. And so I said, not much for me. So I got out here. I was invited many times to join VFW, which is eligible to do. Orsini boy, did you ever know him?
No, I've heard of them.
So I said, Miller and Ernie going to sign me up. I said, yeah. Never did it. So I sat here, not going to anything. I have nothing against them, but I'm not a bar hop. And you got to be a bit of a bar hop to want to join. I have no objection to their drinking. I got a lot of friends down there.
Can I take you back to your service there? I believe you told us that you weren't always with the same aircraft crew, but because of your unique position, you moved from aircraft to aircraft.
Well, I never flew with the old crew. I was taken off that crew and put on rotary automatic individual assignment to crews that flew lead planes, because the radar was in the lead plane only. They might have a deputy plane with it someplace else in the squadron, but primarily I was it. So I rotated. I didn't have a good personal affiliation with any of the other members. I stayed pretty much the old crew. I lived with Borgie, buddied with Borgie and the crew, still associated with them.
Now, when you went over there, did you have any kind of fighter protection, or was the bomber groups on its own? I know that some of the
Well, we had P-51s eventually.
you have P-51s.
Yeah, and they were there. I was late in the war. Before that, they had 47s, and P-51s came in. They were essentially our fighter planes.
Did you have a lot of pursuit by the German aircraft? How heavy? What kind of opposition did you meet?
They were pretty well wiped down. By the time I got there, I never got attacked by them. Other people did in other groups, but mine was lucky. Somehow or other we didn't get tangled up that way. And I flew all the way from bombing missions all the way from Berlin down to Chemnitz, almost into Poland.
Were there any particular kind of targets that you went after? Was there something that was high on the priority list? I believe you were mentioning a certain place there.
Well,
where
that was the first one, Gelsenkirchen. That was a benzene refinery. We went after depots. We went after primarily downtown cities. We were trying to knock down the population. When we bombed something, because we did platform bombing in one plane at a target. You went in, 12 plane air Delta formation. The lead plane did the aiming. He was still there. When his bomb went out, they all dropped on him. So he did a platform bombing. We were out to kill people, frankly. Just a lot of guys. My brother got involved going to Palestine once or twice, which is oil refineries. But I'm sure we went after, I know what we used to go after, downtown cities, because we wanted the railroad marshalling yards. That's what we did at Cologne, and we did at Leipzig. Because in Europe, where they brought the trains together and made them and put them apart and right in the cities. Next one's on you.
Okay.
Dry.
Can you recall when you had opportunities to take R&R into London? We heard a lot about the devastation that was there. Did you see anything as the result of German bombing raids and the V-2 bombs in there?
No V-2s. I saw a Coventry, which got hit very bad. But that was done by a massive bombing by German aircraft. Early wave, early in the war. It was a mess. Small city. But I understand by hearsay only that the British were aware they were going to come in because they had already a copy of the code machines. They were, but didn't. Churchill decided sacrificial goat. Maybe right or wrong. The story may be incorrect, but rather than tip the hand that they knew they were coming, they allowed this to happen. I can't verify it one way or the other. The city sure was a mess. The cities were a mess. Peanuts compared to what we did to Frankfurt, Berlin, and Leipzig. I got pictures, shots I took later, because I took a trip up and down the Rhine and went along in what we call a trolley mission. And take the cruise. Let you go for a ride. So the guy, my pilot and I flew in the crew, said, "You got a Navigator?" I said, "No, I don't. You see that guy ahead of you? If he's lost, you're lost." So I rode up and down the Rhine River, taking my own camera. I have the negatives here. And Frankfurt was just a gut. So was pretty much so was Cologne. But somehow or other, by God or whatever you want to believe, the cathedral in downtown Cologne was still standing, a massive cathedral. Still standing, and so were the big railroad bridges right alongside it, pretty much. Pure accident. We didn't mean to miss it, and we didn't anyhow.
Did your base ever come under attack?
No. They had pillboxes around it, but see, they never got invaded, not in land or bombers probably never even came that far north.
Because one of the people we interviewed told about a German paratrooper unit that came in and they annihilated, they caused a lot of damage,
Oh, sure.
but they were all wiped out.
Well, we had pillboxes on the edges of the field. Someplace I got a picture of that too. See, I own my own 35 millimeter camera. Paid $10 for it or something, stateside. Carcass. And I operate my own darkroom. I go down to London and buy 35 millimeter black and white strip film. Cut my own film, spool it up into cassette. Take my pictures, develop them, and enlarge them. I still have darkroom down cellar, getting me a mess. And so I still enlarge for a long time down cellar. I can show you some of that work. I overseas. I booted some guys out of a room closet, turned it into a dark room. I stole. They had these green lampshades. I took that out of the hall, hung it up in the dark room so I had a dark light. It was a opaque or green side, but it just blacked out the bottom. Made a homemade enlarger, which I still have the guts of down cellar. I made the frame out of a B-17 chair. The back is steel, aluminum. I went down to London and I bought I don't know who made that lens. I bought a lens with a red cap on it for enlarging. And made my own out of soup cans. Wrapped them with adhesive tape so they slide one inside the other. And then you get focus.
Very clever.
Now, what was the feeling like when you met some of the English people? Were their spirits up? Were they down? Were they friendly?
Quite frankly, rarely ever did. We go on Royston, you see some of the younger people. We never really got associated with the older people much. I didn't. The younger people, few would come to the girls and stuff, would come to a dance occasionally on the field. But I wasn't chasing girls at the time. But such an old redhead. I think they were pretty stoic people, really. I think they put up with a lot.
Now you mentioned that there were occasions you had entertainment on there. Did you on your base? Was there any USO shows? Any people of prominence from the entertainment field that you had the opportunity to see?
Before I got there, I understand there's pictures there in the History Channel that Clark Gable used as a gunnery officer in my field for a little while, through a few missions. Then they shipped us back to sell bonds. No, we didn't have anybody notoriety, not in our field. We just had hard-working gents. Pretty much.
Did any of the big brass ever come by? Like Eisenhower or...
I'm sure they were there, but I never got tangled up in it. We went to the raid on Leipzig. I have to back up a little bit. We went on a raid on Leipzig, and the guy with the lead plane, supposed to be the first guy in, said he lost his radar, but he didn't tell anybody about it. He lost it over the channel before we got to Leipzig. So he gets just short of the target, and he's way off course. Says, Mickey, deputy, take over, that's me. So I'm doing 25-degree angles, zigzag back and forth to get lined up to get on the target. And normally you only get about 5-degree angle. You did your navigation, so you could do it pretty well. So we were charged with an evasive action on the bomb run, which is a serious charge. So my whole crew, not Borgie, but the other guys I was with, had to meet in we were 91st Bomb Group, 1st Air Wing, well, 1st Air Division. We were first because we were early over there, I guess. So anyhow, they had brass there, and I don't know what level they were at. I think the field skipper. Had to testify what happened. I don't point out what had happened. The guy, I found out from his navigator later, the radar man, that his equipment had failed, and he never told me about it until late. So we used to have a squadron meeting and review of the missions. So the sawed-off Gene told the big, tall, lanky pilot what I thought of him right at the meeting. He said, I'm doing all that. He hadn't done the rights. It didn't cost us any planes. Could have missed the target badly, though. We used to get winds over there once in a while, 100 miles an hour. They shift you fast. If you didn't know about them, you didn't plan for them, you think you moved in a hurry at 100 miles an hour. We were getting jet winds and hardly knew what they were. Yeah.
Now, can you recall the feeling when it was announced that the war ended in Europe?
Yeah, I was mad.
Why so?
Because they took all the airmen and lured them back to base. And everybody else was having fun. It happened to me twice. VE Day and VJ Day. Get your butt back to base. Afraid we'd go out and raise hell again. Most everybody was raising hell. We couldn't. I was over there when FDR died. And they had ceremonies for it. But it's all that was an excuse to meet, do it, and get over and get off the base.
Well, after the war ended, how long did you stay in England, and how did you get back to the States?
I had to take I probably stayed in England another, I'm guessing 2 or 3 weeks. I had to take a refresher course in navigation. It was Auckland, shoot stars, because we're going to navigate back. It's supposed to. Then somebody at the last minute decided, can't do this to the radar men. It's too scarce. So they put us all together, put us on a boat. I rode home in a hospital transport boat with the other Mickey operators. So that's how I got back. I wound and landed at Fort Devens out of Boston. Stayed there for a while. Walked in the PX, they sat down for a mess hall. Guy went on the table and bench, German prisoner of war. Then they went from there to Fort Dix, I guess. Camp Gilmer, Fort Dix, New Jersey. They shipped it from there and allowed us to go home. Then from there I had to report back to Greensboro, North Carolina, I believe. Maybe back there in Dix or something. Then Greensboro, North Carolina. That's where No, it's not where I got separated from. I shipped from North Carolina to Boca Raton, Florida, radar school. I was supposed to become a B-29 radar navigator at this point, Bombardier. So we sat on the beach because we couldn't get into school right away. So 3 of us officers rented a motel, lived off the base and sat on the beach every day, 5-6 hours, went swimming, got a good tan, and went fishing Lake Okeechobee, which is a great big mud puddle in the middle of Florida. I didn't get anything. We got some fish. I didn't get them. We put them in the trunk of the car, take them back and get them cooked. Because the guy ran the restaurant in Fort Lauderdale said, "You bring the fish in, I'll cook it for you." We put them on ice in the trunk of the car on a hot day. We got all went to chart up, went down, sat down to eat. He got a platter of stinking fish under her nose. He says I couldn't throw them away. I had to show you what he did. So we ate steak. And then I went fishing. That dolphin up there is what I caught out of Fort Lauderdale, 1945, just before I got out of service. That was a 5 foot lie. We raced all the above. That's 4 foot long and weighed 25 pounds. And I caught a brown sand shark, about 5'6". When we got the sand shark up near the boat, the guy just cut the line and let him go. That's a lie. Sorry. Remember, you're getting to fail. Got the sand shark up. The skipper there, that fish got it, he didn't know what it was until it got near the edge. So he decided to pull the thing in. He had a wire leader on it. We got over the side and he shot it with an old rusty gun. I wouldn't fire it anyplace. Went down and got a rifle. Got up on the deck and he hit it with a pop bottle behind the neck and winded it. He gave it to a big black fellow down on the pier in Fort Lauderdale, and the guy took it for the liver extract. He had a market for the liver. So I just gave it to take away.
Now, did you have to pay your own way back home?
I'm glad you asked that question. I got back home and I was going to RIT in Rochester, got married. About a year later, I get a bill for the train cost all the way from Florida, $102, I think it was, to Rochester. The rule of thumb back then was that if you got in Air Force, you were supposed to exit the air base nearest your home. And I didn't. I skipped. I went to Blue Field Tampa because in 3-4 days they let you out. So I got out and went home. Had to pay for it later. Right when you don't have any money.
Now you said you went to Rochester Institute of Technology when you got out of the service.
Mm-hmm.
What did you study?
Electrical engineering.
And when you were graduated from there, what did you do?
What did you eat?
General Electric here in Schenectady.
General Engineering Laboratory, which became an R&D center. They call it something else now, Global or something or other.
Now, you were telling us along the way that you worked rowed submarines and things. Can you tell us
That's
a
at
little
the
bit?
research lab.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that was when you were riding
And how
the
did you get
submarines?
involved in submarine?
Guy came along, my boss came along and said, "How'd you like to take a ride in a submarine?" I said to the guy, Jim Groves his name was, "When do I leave?" He was a fellow who'd been in prison of war for 6 years, 5-6 years. Germans, he lost an eye. Germans put him in the hospital and gave him a glass eye. And he dead now, Jim Groves. And he happened to be my unit supervisor at GE. So I said, I went in a submarine. Got some more guts and brains. So I rode in on a submarine for a week at sea. Down deep, up high, on the level. We were taking seawater samples to find out. We were trying to investigate for the passage of another submarine. See what they did in the water. We tried all kind of games of, you know how to chemistry? You can? Chemistry?
Chemistry.
You ever hear of spreading oils? Adam's oils?
I may have.
Well, the surface tension.
Yes,
We
okay.
measured surface tension. So we actually used Adams oils at different intensity. We took buckets of seawater and we put the drops on top with an eyedropper, see whether they spread. That way you can measure where the cocopods from marine life were being chopped up by another submarine. It never worked.
Now, where did you take the submarines out of? Was it out of Connecticut?
State Pier in Groton. Right, State Pier in Groton. Thames River comes out there.
What kind of work did you do at the research and development facility at GE in Schenectady? Were there any special projects that you were involved in for
That's
the
an arm
military?
and a leg full. I worked on instrumentation principally, the group I was with. I worked in outlaws. They had liquid sodium in a loop out there, manometer, and they wanted to know the level of the liquid metal inside the loop. So we used to measure. You had to find out where the liquid level was. So, fellow I worked for said, "I need this." I said, "Okay," so I built it for him. It was a pickup coil, and when you slid, and I had a thumb release on it, you slid them down the pipe, you could tell where the metal was inside the loop. The coil is on the exterior, so you could read the level. You read it off, and that was at Outlaws. I just could go on and on. Well, I worked on people sniffer. You ever heard of them?
No, tell us about
Let's
that.
go back a bit. Before that, I went and I was signed to go down to Key West, Florida, Boca Chica. I was down there with my family. I took my wife and my boy down with me. I flew on Navy bombers, PBYs. About 60 hours on them. We developed airborne sniffing equipment to smell the air for particles in the air from the submarine exhaust. We're very successful at it. In fact, we go out at sea and this big 4-engine bomber and tip the wings down to 30 feet off the deck, right out over. Big tramp steamer or anybody had to be at sea, just for the fun of it, checking them out. And later on, we took a submarine on the Key West, Florida, and go hide in the Caribbean. You go anywhere from Cuba to Venezuela. And my old boss and myself climbed in the PB-4Y. Went out and we found them about 160 miles. We did it about over 100 miles away by sniffing the air.
Amazing.
I have one patent in that particular area of work. Didn't use that particular model in the submarine detector because we had another one that's similar, yet different. Because mine, the one feature I had in mine added an added feature that you could use it to go to different altitudes. It was insensitive to altitude. But I got one on the garage, not that one. I got one of the production type. I was given a responsibility to sell, make, manufacture, and sell these right in the lab. $5,000 a pop if you need one.
Have you maintained any relationships with the fellows you served with in the Air Force group?
Only my old pilot. We used to have a squadron reunion once a year, and we go to some different places. And Borgie, being a skipper, kind of arranged it. I was allowed to go along with them because even though I didn't fly combat with them, I was considered their navigator. Because they never got assigned a permanent navigator. And that was it. So Rose and I went with them. We had reunions out in Seattle, Washington, at the 50th anniversary, it'd be 17, I think it was, one of them. And gone out there once or twice reunions. One poor guy out there, they asked in the meeting, "Hey, you fellas, how many of you guys still got your uniforms?" 25 years after we're out. Well, one guy next down the line for me, "I don't have mine." I said, "What happened?" He said, "My new bride threw them out." I said, "You go home and kill your new bride."
Could you all fit in the old uniforms if you had
You
them?
can't. I still got them.
Yeah.
I got the blouses hanging in the closet.
One thing you didn't tell us about, you didn't mention here, and that's how we got to meet you and know about you, was at the Veterans Gathering here, when occasionally at the Homefront Cafe in Altamont.
Didn't meet you at that
We
point.
didn't meet you there.
Well, we could have, but we didn't. That was probably after I started becoming ill enough not to go.
We met him through the owner of the Homefront
Okay, Cindy
Cafe.
Pollard.
Yeah, she
Well, Cindy's the one that recommended it.
right.
And she kept asking me, and I say, no. Yeah.
So, well, we thank you for all this,
My
your
pleasure.
story, and we wish
More
you
of a
the
story
best.
than I planned on.
Well,
They
you-
expand by thanks to you people.
yeah.
But
Well, we're glad and thafteful.
I have such a varied background, it's hard to put it together. Because you take the military services, comes that part of it, and the GE part comes that part of it.
You can see how there was some intertwining of military experiences in your civilian occupation too, and that was well worth
yeah.
knowing about it.
Well, see, I not only had the submarines, destroyers, and atomic bombs. I should be
Okay.
sterile by now. Because I got right over to the one at the Yucca Flats was distant, 10 miles. They kicked off a half ton of dynamite out about 5 miles apart and let us look. Put dark glasses on. So we'd tell you to turn around and look, we looked. It was a 20-ton, 12 kiloton shallow burial. Turn around, look, and the ground, earth's going this way. 40-some thousand feet in the air, and you can see the winds of the loft shearing the top off. That stuff went around the world. That's about the time the troops out in the trenches got in trouble. And what happened to Carlsbad, I don't know how far that went. They never told us. See, we did a lot of things we didn't tell the general public about. Like they did a lot of stuff out there with poison gases, everything. Farmers paid for it. They didn't tell you about some of those tests out in Yucca Flats. Even had storms from 90 in the milk in New York State. So the kids who weren't supposed to, young kids weren't supposed to get next to it.
That's the time when we heard so much about strontium-90.
That's it. So people said, "Don't you light up at night?" No,
Okay, well, thanks again.
my pleasure.
Okay.